Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Fiona Lukeis here, coming to you live for my Friday Live. Just going to give things time to kind of filter through so people know that I am here. The sun is shining in Melbourne, which is always a lovely thing. And I've got a couple of great questions to share with you guys today. Hey, Brian. Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for saying hi. First cab off the rank. Love it when people say hi. Thank you. And thank you for that that link to that video you sent me this morning. Actually, it was lovely. Wow, beautiful. Hello, everybody. If you're just tuning in, welcome to today's Friday Live. And as always, love it when people say hi to me. Winter is coming to Melbourne, so you're going to notice me dressing more and more in woolly, wintry clothing, while hopefully the rest of the world is warming up. I've got some great things I want to share with you today. As always, on these lives, I am sharing with you what has shown up for me in my client work with my relatable students, and then from there, what would actually be helpful and useful for you. All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you. Look at your lovely comments coming through. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Hey, Roz, nice to see you. Hey, Josephine. I don't know if you get called Joe. So I'm not sure if I should call you Joe or Josephine, but as us Aussies love to just shorten everything, don't we? So, but Josephine's a beautiful name. Hi. Hi, Hado. Nice to see you here. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Christy. Hope you're well, honey. Hi, Tracy, Sheila, Josie, of course, Josie. Okay, thank you, Josie. Thanks for clarifying that for me, honey. Love it that you're all saying hi. Beautiful, beautiful. So if you've got a question that you would like me to answer, please pop it in the comments below, and I will do my absolute best to answer that for you. So, it's been an interesting week, a really busy week. As you know, I've got a lovely new assistant working with me, and she's doing a fantastic job. Her name is Rochelle. So if anyone's communicating with me, you'll notice that you're getting emails now from Rochelle. I was actually just in a meeting with her, which is why I'm a little bit late. We were just going over some things quickly together. But yeah, it's been a really interesting week. Lots of interesting things coming up in my client work, lots of great conversations with my relatable students, and lots of insights for me, because as you all know, and you hear me talk about this all the time, the only way we create long-term sustainable change is via insight. Okay, it's via the gift of insight and fresh thinking. This is how we create long-term sustainable change. And so everything that I do is pointing you in that direction. Okay, and so it's a slightly different direction, because normally when we think about change, we think about it in terms of application and learning and information, and then applying that information. Do you know what I mean? I think we see it more from a willpower-based place. And willpower-based change just does not have the sustainability that insight-based change does. Okay, so when we are looking at things from a place of willpower, we are very limited in the application, in our level of understanding, and our ability to do that long term, because you have to be in that frame of mind, don't you? And as you know, as a human being, our frame of mind changes continuously. And so if you're not in that frame of mind, your ability to apply that thing is very, very, very limited. However, when we are looking in the direction of insight, and insight illuminates something in a way that you've never seen before, okay? And it illuminates it in such a way that you never forget it. It takes your level of consciousness or awareness to a completely different place, which then creates a different reality and fresh thinking. This is so, so, so important in our relationships. Well, it's important in life in general, everywhere, okay? But particularly around our relationships, because as you all have heard me say many times, our relationships are in my opinion, this is just my opinion, they are the life force of everything. They are the heart and soul of everything that we do. We are always in a relationship with something. Okay. And the three main areas of relationships are your relationship with you, your relationship with life, and then obviously your relationship with others. But if you're just working on your relationship with others or learning about that or whatever, looking in that direction, and you haven't dealt with these two, your relationship with life and your relationship with you, this becomes super hard. Very, very hard, because your relationship with others is always, always, always a reflection of these two things: your relationship with life and your relationship with you. So, for example, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, you are going to be very defensive. You are going to take life personally. You are more likely to be someone who will avoid dealing with things. You're generally going to be someone who either gets super defensive, angry, upset, or shut down and kind of head in the sand when it comes to dealing with things. You are going to struggle to deal with change. You will be someone who doesn't handle feedback well. You will find it hard to connect with others because it's almost like you've got an armor on, an emotional armor on. So when there's an emotional armor on, there's almost a hardness in our chest. And so it's hard for people to connect with you, and it's hard for you to connect with others. You will struggle to let things go. If you're someone who struggles to let things go, you've got to understand that that's part of your suit of armor. It's what you hold on to protect yourself. So if you're struggling to let things go, you are someone who's is not comfortable in your own skin. Okay. So these are some of the things that play out in our lives when we're not comfortable in our own skin. Now, when we're not comfortable with life, when we don't have a great relationship with life, so we've lost faith and trust in life itself. And many people feel this way. Maybe you feel life has been really unfair to you. Maybe you feel like you're going through something in your life that you never imagined that you would. Maybe you feel like you've worked really, really, really hard and you're a good person and things haven't gone your way. And and I relate to that. I used to very much feel that way. I really did. And my relationship with life had a very big impact on how I showed up to the relationships in my life and my level of happiness and well-being. So, if you're someone who's lost faith in life, we tend to be quite controlling, okay? And we tend to get quite controlling because we need life to be a certain way to be okay. Now, when you're being very controlling around your relationship with life, you unfortunately become very controlling of others. And, as some of you will be very aware, people don't like being controlled, do they? People do not like being controlled. And when you're in a relationship where you're controlling someone else, that's when goodwill falls through the floor, communication, intimacy, connection, etc., etc. Okay, so your relationship with you and your relationship with life is fundamentally important. I was actually having this conversation with a client yesterday that I've been working with, and they were saying to me, Fiona, it's unbelievable. I am so relaxed about things now. I used to be so uptight, and I can see now that it meant that I could not appreciate the things that my partner was doing. It looked like they were never doing enough. It looked like they weren't trying hard enough. She said, it's like looking through a completely different lens. I see everything they're doing now. And she said, I'm calmer, I'm more grateful, life is richer. And so she has a very different relationship with herself and life. She's far more comfortable in her own skin. And so we become more relaxed. And when we're more relaxed, we're more present, we're softer, we're more lighthearted, we're playful. We don't have that hard edge that so many people show up to life with. Hey, Susan, thanks for saying hi. It's so lovely, always lovely to see your name on the screen, Susan, and everybody else who says hi. So is this making sense? So these three areas are key, guys. And if you think about them, they are fundamental to everything. How comfortable you are in your own skin. How much faith and trust you have in life has a lot to do with your levels of resilience. How quickly do you bounce back from things when life hits? Because life is a contact sport. If you don't bounce back very well or you find that hard, then that's an area that you need to look at. Okay? It's very, very, very important. It's hard to see the beauty in life when your relationship with life, when you've lost faith and trust in life. Okay? When you can't see that that the universe does not have your back. And this is a very, very misunderstood thing. People think the definition of the universe having your back is when you get everything that you want. That is not a sign of the universe having your back. Okay, that is if you see that as evidence of the universe having your back, you're going to be extremely disappointed. Okay, because we don't always get what we want. Absolutely not. And we don't always we can't always what's the word? Just because we try really hard and we work hard doesn't mean we will always get what we want either. As you've heard me say before, I'm sure there are plenty of Meryl Streeps still waiting tables in Hollywood. But when you have faith and trust in life and you're looking in a different direction, that's when you can really start to see the universe has your back. But it's not dependent upon you getting the things that you want. That doesn't mean that the universe does or doesn't have your back, because we're not meant to get everything that we want. Life is a spiritual journey first and foremost before it is a human one. And, people forget that. The what the human wants and what the soul needs can often come into conflict. Okay. And a point in case, if you're someone that's being called to expand, if you're someone who's being called to do something different, if you're someone who's getting this nudge, maybe it's to change careers or change relationships or something else, and you're ignoring it, that's because your human wants to stay comfortable, wants everything to stay the same, and doesn't really like change. I get that, right? But we have this urge, we have this desire to expand and grow, but expansion and growth can be scary for the human. And so there are often times where we come into this crossroad with each other, okay? And that's when things can go a little bit pear-shaped. That's when the human kind of exercises free will and says, I'm not talking about that. I'm going to stick my head in the sand, or gets defensive and takes things personally, and then yada, yada, yada. And case in point, people who come to me and they'll say, my partner's been asking me to reach out to you for ages and I've stuck my head in the sand, or, I know we've needed help for a while, but I thought I could do it myself. You can hear where there's that conflict between the soul and the human, where they're getting tapped on the shoulder and it's like, hey, little human, wakey, wakey. Things aren't working out so well. And, instead of leaning into that, the human goes, I'll just have another glass of wine. You know what? I think I might just stay longer at work. Oh, I'm going to add more to my to-do list. Oh, I'm just going to sit down and watch hours of TV. Okay. In other words, I'm going to distract myself and numb myself down. This is what we do, right? Josie. Okay. I'm just checking your question here, honey. My question is a bit different. My relationship with my partner is reasonably healthy, but I find I have a strong push to be on my own, to live life my way. This is causing turmoil in my brain and I fear making a wrong decision. Okay. So what's your question exactly around that, Josie? I'm not sure what your question is. I appreciate you sharing an overview of your situation, but if you could kind of give me a little bit more detail on what your actual question is around that. Is your question, should I stay or go? Is your question, like, what is it that you fear? What do you see as a wrong decision? I just need a little bit more information if you could, honey, and I'd really appreciate it. Anybody else? I just want to check in on what I've just shared so far, because this is so, so, so important, and it's fundamental to kind of building something from the bottom up versus the top down, which I know some of you have heard me talk about before. Roz, I love it. We'll ask it on Monday's call. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Hey, Semi, nice to see you. Really, really nice to see you, honey. Lovely, lovely to see you. It's been a little while. I hope all is well with you. Okay. Now, whilst I'm waiting for some of those, hang on, hide. I didn't mean to put that on there. Whilst I'm waiting for some of those, I'm going to just go check a question that came in this morning. Hi, Fiona. I listen to your Friday Lives every week. Thank you for your work. You're welcome. I have a question about how to relate to my husband, who was diagnosed with short-term memory issues due to concussion during his life. He's in his early 70s and I'm in my late 60s. Over the last few years, his memory has slowly worsened and I've had to take over responsibility for managing our home, maintenance budget, and all his appointments. Okay. We also have a high functioning autistic son who lives with us. Many days I feel overwhelmed by the responsibilities and have had numerous conversations with him about downsizing our home to minimize the burden of, of my managing it. My husband is aware of his memory loss, but is in denial of what he can't do anymore and doesn't want to downsize. He's a very optimistic person and is not depressed. What is your advice on moving forward for me? Thank you. Um, okay, look, great question. First of all, I can only imagine how overwhelming that can be at times, because that's a lot, right? There's a lot that you're dealing with there. Um, I guess I don't know what, like, without knowing what the level of goodwill is between you and your husband and the level of neutrality you have when you're approaching this, then there's a couple of pieces of information missing for me here. So I'll do my best to answer that based on just what you've sent through to me here. But I remember there was a lady in our Relatable program a couple of years ago who was going through a very similar thing. Her husband had suffered memory loss due to concussion, and again didn't realise the extent of it, and was in denial about the impact that was having on his life. And so that was actually one of the reasons why she joined the program, because she really wanted to learn how to navigate her way through that and show up to that differently. And she certainly absolutely learnt that in the program. And one of the things that she realised is that she hadn't been neutral enough around that. So there'd been a lot of angst, a lot of pushing, a lot of frantic kind of conversations, which had just caused him to kind of retreat and shut down. And so she learned how to show up to that in a more neutral way, to be a lot more curious, and to pick moments to have that conversation where he was more lucid. And, I mean, I could go into a lot more detail around the form here, but you might want to consider. Now, I appreciate your husband may not agree to this, but if he has got a lot of concussion, whether you're able to become his medical power of attorney, that might be something that you want to look at so that you can make decisions especially if his memory is deteriorating. You said he's in his 70s and you're younger, but you also might want to have conversations with a neutral party there, so that if your husband's not able to remember those conversations, there's someone there who can advocate for both of you. The other thing is, if you're feeling like you're really, really overwhelmed and you're struggling to manage all of those things, it's being able to either put those things in writing, put down some of the things that you do so that he can see that the things that are involved. And I appreciate it's tricky when someone has memory loss. But to be able to sit down and have a conversation that is really exploring his reality around something. One of the things that we struggle with, and I'm a huge, huge, huge advocate of this, is us being able to possess the ability to speak to someone else's reality. Most of the time, when we're having a conversation, we're inadvertently and innocently speaking to our own reality. Okay. And so we wonder why the conversation doesn't get any traction. Now, without knowing how much memory loss is here and how advanced that is and where things are at, this is why I'm throwing out a couple of suggestions here. But you've got to get super curious. Like, for example, what is it that has him not want to downsize? What is it that he thinks is going to happen if you do downsize? What are his concerns about that? And has he then thought about what that would mean for you in terms of you feeling lighter, less overwhelmed, more able to connect, the two of you having, maybe a higher amount of disposable income if you're downsizing and buying something, that's obviously smaller. What does that mean? So speaking to the two of you from terms of what is it that you want to create? What's the bigger picture here for you guys as you move forward? What is it that you want to create for the two of you, for your marriage, for your life? What do you want to be able to do? What kind of fun do you want to have together? And so looking at it from terms of what you want to create, rather than coming at something from a place of fear and worry and concern. All right. Often when we tap into what we want to create, people feel more expansive and excited, and they tap into that sense of possibility and potential, and they're in a different frame of mind, and it becomes easier to have that conversation. Would you like to have more fun? I don't have as much time for fun because these are all the things that I'm handling, and I'd love to have more fun with you. I'd love for us to be able to go on trips together, or do you know what I mean? Does that sound like something you'd like to do? So really enrolling them in something that actually feels good for the two of you, where you're kind of painting a picture of what's possible. So there's a few different options. Again, without knowing the ins and outs of that situation, there are a couple of different ways in which I would approach it, but you've got to make sure, number one, that you're neutral, that you're curious, that you're speaking to his reality, and you're just taking the time to explore what it is that he is, what his concerns are about downsizing, what does he feel that he's going to miss, etc. The fact that he's an optimistic person, awesome. Tap into that, and from a place of, what is it that we can create together? What can we do together? If you're coming into those conversations and your energy is negative and heavy and resentful and frustrated, he's just going to go into his corner and you're going to go into yours. The key here is to be able to have a meeting of the minds with someone, and I appreciate that might be tricky because of the memory loss and other things, but try that first, and then see what happens. So I hope that helps with that question. Josie, do I stay or do I go? Well, I guess, again, Josie, this is the same for you. What is it that you want to create in your life? What do you want to create? How do you want to feel? What is it that you see in your future? Like, if you sit quietly, and we've got to learn to be reflective with ourselves, and let our minds wander, and let our imagination have uh, you know have an opportunity to express itself. So what is it that you want to create for yourself, honey? That you've got to start there. Now, as you get clearer on that, you also need to know, and this is a big part of what I teach, whether you have clarity of mind or not. When our mind is clear, it's much easier to know what the next steps are for us. Often people try to make decisions like this when their mind is not clear, when they don't have clarity of mind. So they're overthinking it. They're looking at all the if, buts, yes, whys. Get very quiet with yourself, Josie, and give yourself a chance to sit with it, marinate, reflect. What makes sense to you when you do that, when your mind is quiet? Okay, because that is when we're most likely to hear what our truth is. When our mind is busy and overthinking and worrying about all the things, we're a long way from truth, our own truth. Okay, now tapping into your own truth, it's a bit like what I said at the start of the live. You've got this crossroad, right? The soul wants one thing, the human wants another. And so, truth, where's the truth? So it's when your mind is quiet and clear and it's not racing. So give yourself a chance to don't try and make a decision, put it down, wait for your mind to clear, and see what shows up, see what pops up, see what's there for you, and then trust in that. Sometimes it only pops up very briefly, which is why clarity of mind and your mind being quiet is really important, because it enables you to tune into your own wisdom and actually see what makes sense to you, right? Because wisdom, is this the thing about wisdom? Wisdom will never try and convince you, because wisdom has nothing to prove. Your ego will try and convince you. Your ego always has something to prove, something to hide, something to justify. Wisdom will never do that. That's one of the reasons you can tell the difference between the two. Okay? Wisdom will never justify. It has nothing to prove, doesn't have anything to hide, and it's endlessly patient. So it just taps and makes suggestions and says, have you thought about this? But it is not there saying, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. That's not wisdom. You know that you're looking in the wrong place. Okay? So give yourself a chance for your mind to get quiet and see what makes sense to you, because you want to make a decision from a place of what your own truth is. A lot of people struggle with this because it's been a long time since they've been connected. Again, I'm going to come back to what I said at the start of the live. Your relationship with you. Super important, right? the more deeper and connected your relationship with you, the greater your relationship with wisdom. You know, when I fled a domestic violent relationship many years ago now, a long time ago, I had no relationship with my own wisdom, none. That has been one of my biggest learnings from that relationship, is to develop that. And it is now an integral part of my life, and something I tune into all the time. So it enables me to honor myself, live from my truth, live from a place of well-being, and still connect with people and show up to people the way I want to. This is very, very, very important. Very important. I cannot tell you how important this is. Okay? This is what enables you to live a life you love. That's not based on what someone else thinks. It's not based on you endlessly looking out here for all the answers, which is very disempowering. It's very important. And again, big part of what I teach, so that you can become comfortable in your own skin. So if you make a decision that goes against the grain, you have conviction around that. And conviction is very compelling, right? Very compelling. People are more respectful of your decisions when you have conviction, but a lot of people don't have conviction. They bounce around because they're making a decision from fear, they're making a decision from their ego, and they don't have clarity of mind. Very, very important. So I hope that helps, Josie. David, I'm currently going through a separation born from my avoidant attachment style. Okay. And I'm carrying significant regret for not being able to communicate my real thoughts during my relationship by fear of her response. Any sadness to address these fears so I can stop repeating, any suggestions to address these fears so I can stop repeating the cycle? Yes, I do have some suggestions. Equally, how can I use the sadness and regret to better myself? Yep, okay. So couple of things here. It's really, really important, David, and often a breakdown of a relationship or a massive change in our life is often the impetus that has us wake up a little bit, right? So when we've been living life a certain way, kind of asleep at the wheel, and I don't say that to be disrespectful of you, but a lot of people are asleep at the wheel, like a lot. And they don't even realize it. So in other words, they're going through the motions in life. They're not tuned in with themselves. They don't have a great relationship with themselves. They don't have a great relationship with life. They're literally just going through the motions. Okay. And life just kind of feels a bit hollow. And they're not tuned in to the other person. And so this is where people end up being blindsided, because all of a sudden their partner turns around and says, I'm done. And they're like, what? Where did that come from? Now, if you've been blindsided by your partner saying, I'm done, now this is not 100% true, but most of the time it is because you've been asleep at the wheel. You haven't been listening. You're not present. Okay, so you've got to learn how to be present, David. Okay, you've got to learn to tune into yourself so that you're not operating from a place of fear. You need to have a different relationship with your thinking. That is life-changing. This is everything I teach in my online program, Relatable, everything. Okay, so I highly recommend, if you can, to do that, because I teach you all of that stuff. And I have just as many men and women in that program, students everywhere learning this. Their minds get quieter. They navigate their thinking differently. They're more present. They're in tune with themselves. They are able to put things down, so they're not operating from the past and therefore repeating that in the now. They're grounded. Their minds are more expansive, and they're a lot more emotionally intelligent, and they're listening differently. And so they have a lot more on offer. And apart from that, they feel fantastic. These are the things that I teach in Relatable. Okay. Now, in regards to the second part of your question, how can I use the sadness and the regret to better myself? I think this is a fantastic question, really fantastic question. And the reason is because we are so used to learning through the lens of the ego. Okay? I'm going to say that again. We're so used to learning through the lens of the ego. Now, you know when you're learning through the lens of the ego, because when you have a realization about yourself, which you've had, David, which I've had, and many times we do, and a realization is a wonderful, wonderful gift. Because when you have a realization, you are waking up, right? You're waking up. That's what a realization does. It illuminates something that we haven't seen before, right? So, and as soon as something is illuminated that you haven't seen before, you have a lot more choice around it. Can't choose what you can't see. How can we? We can't change what we can't see. And a lot of things are invisible to us, especially when we've been asleep at the wheel of our lives for a long time or going through the motions of life. So you've had a realization. Now, when you then look at that realization through the lens of ego, you tend to make yourself wrong, don't you? Because that's what the ego does. The ego will judge you. Why did you do that? My goodness, you should have realized this earlier. You knew better than this. That was ridiculous. Da 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 da. So basically, when we are learning through the lens of the ego, it's like we've got a massive hammer and we just slam ourselves with it. Okay. Now the problem when you're learning by slamming yourself like that is you actually miss the opportunity for that realization to truly do the magic that it's there to do. Because you become so shut down, so full of regret, so full of anger at yourself, it ends up becoming, instead of something that causes you to expand, it causes you to shrink. This is very important what I'm saying. And so if you are having realizations and you're shrinking, you're learning through your ego. If you're having realizations and you're expanding, then you're learning through something else. That's where the magic lies. Okay? So it is your ego making you wrong. That's what the ego does. The ego judges. The ego is the one that says you should have done that, you should have done this, that's not okay, that's not this. The ego doesn't see the gift in the realization. So in other words, if you're learning through the ego, you're generally making yourself wrong, you're generally putting yourself down, you're generally seeing yourself as this terrible person. And what you're missing is the gift that you've just been given. Because a realization is a gift. An extraordinary, amazing gift. Because it has just illuminated something that you've never seen before. It's the gift that enables you to evolve and expand. And that's what we're here for. We're either repeating or evolving. We're not doing anything else. And so if you are not evolving in your relationships will struggle. They will stagnate. They will just go on repeat mode. And this is where goodwill disappears, communication disappears, and this is where people give up on each other. Okay? So you have to see a realization as a gift. It's just given you the opportunity to expand. But what are you going to do with it? Okay? Are you going to see it as the gift that you've been given? Are you going to look at it through the lens of gratitude and appreciation? Or are you going to look at it through the lens of the ego and make yourself wrong? Okay? You have to understand choice is the most precious gift there is. When you're asleep at the wheel, you don't have choice. When you're stuck, you don't have choice. When you're repeating, you can't see the choice. Okay? Can you see that? And this is why people feel awful. They feel hollow. Life loses its sense of joy and meaning. They don't feel moved by anything. It feels like they're going through the motions. And so you kind of get to the point where you go, what's the point? Right? What's the point? Doesn't matter what I do, I can't get it right. Doesn't matter what I do, I don't really feel great. Doesn't matter what I do, things don't go my way. Now, if you've got thoughts like that, I'm telling you, your relationship with you and your relationship with life needs to be looked at, because there's so much more on offer than that. And often, unfortunately for us humans, and I know we all wish it were different, we don't grow through when life is easy. We grow when life gets really hard. We grow when things don't go our way. We grow through realization, which can be confronting and difficult. But that's where the gift lies. You know, I cannot tell you so many people, as an example, my students will say this on the calls in Relatable. You know, Fiona, I came here because my marriage broke down, or I lost contact with my adult child, or, you know, I'm struggling with a work colleague or whatever, or I'm not happy within me. And, you know, I never thought I'd say this. I'm grateful that that happened, because I've discovered this. I would never have even looked at this if that hadn't happened. And so you'll notice that it's through difficult things that we learn, that we grow, that we expand, and then on the other side of that are amazing things. But the human doesn't want to go through that stuff. And I get it. It doesn't feel good. But what's on the other side of that is something that people struggle to even imagine. So do not use what you've learned against yourself, David. Okay? Don't learn through the lens of the ego. There's no growth there. There's just smashing yourself into the ground, right? You've got to look through the lens of gratitude and appreciation so that you expand and you learn and you look back on this and you see this as a turning point where your life completely turned around for the better. Anyway, I really hope that helps, and I wish you all the very best. And if you want to know about Relatable, book a time to have a chat with me and I'll take you through it. Josie, you're sitting with it at present. Yes. Now, give yourself time to do that, Josie. All right? Give yourself time. We get very hung up on time, us humans. We might sit there and say, oh, I spent a day on this or a week on this or a month on this and I'm not getting clarity. You'll get it. Again, this comes into, right, your relationship with life. How much faith and trust do you have in life? If you don't have a lot of faith and trust in life, you'll fight that feeling all the time. Okay. And then it just takes longer. It's like fighting quicksand. Hey, Andrew, so lovely to see you. Really lovely to see you. I'm glad that you're feeling better, Andrew. I really am. Still having struggles, as you know, but overall so much better. I'm so glad to hear that, Andrew. Thank you so much for commenting. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, so just want to do a quick check-in. Is this helpful to those of you who are listening? Does anyone have any questions for me about what I've shared with you today? There's quite a lot of stuff in what I've shared here, so I just want to check, has this been helpful? Any feedback, anything you want to ask me before I finish up the live? Anyone got any questions at all? Let me know. Anyone? Okay. No. All right. Okay. Now, if you want to find out more about my Relatable program, if you've got any questions and you want to find out what's what's involved with that, here's a link where you can make a time to have a chat with me. More than happy to answer your questions. Relatable is very, very, very special. Something I'm very, very, very passionate about. So here's a link where you can book a time with me. Otherwise, if you if you've got a question that you want me to answer, please send it through to hello@fionalukeis.com.au and put Friday Live, Facebook Friday Live in the subject line, and I will make sure that I answer it for you next week. Next Friday, I generally answer questions in the order in which they're sent in to me. I think I've answered every question for today. Otherwise, guys, I look forward to seeing you next Friday. Have a fantastic week. I hope that truly this makes a difference in your life and makes a difference to your week somehow, and there are ripple effects from what you've learned today. All right, take care, everyone. I'll see you next week. Ciao.